Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. When you survey lots and lots and lots of people and do psychological and scientific research on fear, what they find is that the number one fear that people have, more than things like guns that actually kill people, is public speaking. And we've spoken about it in here in the past, in that the fear that we have either is a fear of physical death, so people have a fear of heights or closed spaces or deep water or snakes or, all of the different things that people have phobias of are really linked to things that are harmful to us, things that actually could kill us. The things that so many of us are afraid of, even though they may not necessarily directly kill us, in our minds we think that they might, subconsciously. So for example, people are afraid of taking a risk in the office, speaking their mind, giving a suggestion. Why? Because in their mind they subconsciously go, I give this idea, my boss rejects it, thinks I'm stupid, I end up getting fired. When I'm fired, then I don't have any more money. If I don't have any more money, then I'm homeless. If I'm homeless, then eventually I die. And so they stay back from taking risks of things that seem relatively harmless because the mind has already gone from offer a suggestion in the workplace to die in a gutter someplace, starving and homeless. But the type of fear that Anushka's asking about, to me, is a much more interesting type of fear, which is the fear, essentially, of ego death. Because we say it a lot. We say things like, oh my God, I was going to die of embarrassment. Now, nobody actually ever dies of embarrassment. Even if you give the worst speech in the world, even if everybody laughs at you, even if they throw tomatoes at you, even if, 1,000 people get up and walk out of a hall, you still don't actually die. All that happens is you feel embarrassed. But we've so closely identified our ego with our physical survival that for a lot of people, ego death is as scary as physical death. So, Anushka, the way to overcome this is to realize it's only the ego. The worst that happens is you feel embarrassed. No problem. It's happened to all of us. Worst that happens is you think that you didn't do a good job. You forget your lines, you forget your speech. Say something silly, people laugh. It's okay. It's happened to everyone. It's happened to everyone. Do not worry. What you should be much more worried about is not having the courage to actually share your beautiful gifts with the world. And if you have no interest in ever being on a stage and public speaking or singing or dancing or acting or all the things that people do on stages, that's fine. There's no rule that says thou shalt become a public speaker or an actor or a singer or a dancer. There's lots of really, really, really happy, fulfilled people in the world, the vast majority of them, who have very meaningful lives, who never get up on stage and do anything. So it's not that you have to do it, but if you have an urge, a yearning to, because you feel that you have a gift you want to share, then don't let your fear stop you. Then you've got to honor that gift. And if you get laughed at, if you get booed off a stage, or as I said, tomatoes are thrown at you, or everybody walks out, whatever it may be, well, you keep really good company, because Albert Einstein failed math. There's all kinds of great stories of people who became Nobel Prize winners, super, super, super famous actresses, super famous authors, whose manuscripts were rejected like 60 times from every publisher they ever sent them to. People who were told, you can't act, you can't sing, you can't play basketball, you can't do math. And then they go on to become Van Gogh or Albert Einstein or some super, super, super famous, brilliant, successful author. So if you've got a calling, your responsibility is not that people should love it. Your responsibility is just, you should put it out there. That which people respond to, they love it, they don't love it, that's their karmic package. And this is true for everything in life, not just public speaking. Not just any gift that we're putting out publicly. This is true for everything. We are called in our dharma to be this vehicle, this instrument of the divine flow on earth. And that takes different forms in each of us. It's like electricity comes in different forms based on different things. The electricity comes through the microphone in one way, through the lights in another way, through the camera in another way, through the speakers in another way, through the fan in the summertime in another way. Same electricity. But just because the appliance is different, from when you get sound, from when you get light, from when you get something else, get toast from a toaster, right? Same electricity though. It's not like here's the toast electricity or the smoothie electricity. It's just electricity. One divine flow. But we all get to be different types of instruments. And all we are here to do is to be that instrument. That which happens, people love the toast that you made or they don't. They love the sound that comes out of the speaker or they don't. They love what they see under your light or they don't. That isn't your responsibility. Your responsibility is not their reaction or the fruits of that labor, as Bhagavan Krishna speaks about in the Bhagavad Gita. Your responsibility is just do your duty. Share your gifts, take the risk, have the courage, open your heart. So Anushka, if you are not interested in being on a stage, no problem, don't worry about it. Do whatever it is that you feel called to do. But if you do feel called and you're just nervous, then get yourself up there. No matter how nervous you feel, get yourself up there. And I'll teach you a little secret that I remember being taught when I was 8 years old in summer camp. And the summer camp I went to used to do musical performances every year. And And I remember my very first year at camp being in the performance, and we were all very, very nervous, of course. And the director gave us a tip. And the tip was, picture that everybody sitting in the audience is sitting there in their underpants. And if you picture that the audience is sitting there in their underpants, then they no longer seem very threatening. Now, Anushka, I don't know how old you are, and you may be too old for that particular example, but it worked very, very well at that time. But try it. Try it and see whether that makes you feel less afraid to get up on the stage. And if it turns out that you're too old for that particular tip, then when you get out there, just take a moment before you start to speak or sing or dance or whatever you're going to do. Just take a moment and offer a prayer to God that's just, empty me. Just empty me. You flow through me. You be that electricity. I'm just your appliance. And just flow through me. And you know what needs to be done. And then just offer it to the divine.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
walk a mile in my shoes.
walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. One of the truths and challenges of life is we don't actually have any control over anyone else's thoughts or emotions. And the more that we try to change how other people think or how they feel, the more depressed and frustrated we become. It's like beating our heads against a wall. It doesn't work. You can't do it. If someone has expectations, our close ones, family members, have expectations for you, about how you're going to live, how they think you should live, it's going to be really, really difficult, if not impossible, to get them to let those go. They may stop talking to you about them. They may pretend that they don't have them because they don't want to make you upset. But they're not actually going to drop them on the inside. The only answer here is for you to deeply recognize that your dharma is not to fulfill someone else's expectations. We are not here on planet Earth to fulfill someone else's expectations. even if you tried. You can't. Because, of course, it's not only one person who has expectations. There's at least 5, 10, 15 people, family members, friends, people in the office, people in society. I mean, everybody's got some idea of how you should think, how you should live, how you should dress, how you should behave, all of that. So you literally cannot keep everyone happy. One thinks you're too thin, one thinks you're too fat, one thinks you're working too hard, one thinks you're not working hard enough. I mean, you would drive yourself batty and not be successful at all if you actually try to fulfill these. So the only solution is to actually recognize, I'm not here for that. Obviously, I want to help people as much as I can. I want to serve as much as I can, bring joy and peace as much as we all can. But not by adapting my dharma to match their agenda. That is not what is being asked of us. So if someone has an expectation, let's say, that you get these in families a lot with parents, sort of, we've spent so much money on your education, we've done all of this now, like you better go out there, you better work yourself to the bone, you better make a whole bunch of money, you better be really successful, because that's what we expect, and because, we've done everything for you, therefore, you owe it to us, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the world. But what if really what you want to do is write poetry instead of do business? What if what you want to do is, teach inner city kindergarten for some NGO or some, local government school? There's barely enough money to, there's enough you're going to feed yourself. You're not going to starve, but you're certainly not going to become rich enough that the neighbors say to your parents, wow, God, what your child has become. Depending on who the family members are, if you're lucky, if you're really blessed, they're going to actually see the value in you fulfilling your dharma regardless of whether it ends up being what their expectation on that level was. But we're not all that lucky. A lot of times, remember, our parents are humans. And in that spectrum of humans, we're all at different levels of doing our own work and working through our own attachments and expectations and agendas and illusions and all of that. And so depending on where on this spectrum your parents are, they may say, wow, I'm so proud of you. I know it's not easy, but I'm so proud of you for having that courage to really live according to what you know is right. What you know you're meant to do. And I'm so proud of you for, living simply because that's what you need to do in order to have the job that you want. But you may not get that. You may get them saying, this is such a waste. You could do so much more. You're not fulfilling your potential. There's a very big misunderstanding in the world that potential equals money and power. When people say you're not fulfilling your potential, 99 times out of 100, it means you could be achieving, acquiring, earning more in the material world, the career world, than you are. No one says, God, you could be so much more spiritually deep than you are if you just meditated a little more. Wow, you could be so much more in touch with the beautiful truth of yourself, if you just let go of some of those attachments. No one ever talks about our spiritual potential. I mean, the gurus do. But in society, we don't get that. In society, when people say your potential, live up to your potential, it essentially means work yourself to the bone, rise as high as you can, bring home as much as you can. And for some people, that is what they need to do to fulfill a dharma. But that's not true for all of us. And so when you're working with other people's expectations for you, make sure that you're really loyal, mostly, to your own dharma. You must be respectful of them, especially if they're your parents. Deeply respectful, deeply grateful for everything they've given you, everything they've done for you. But sadly, just because people are biologically capable of conceiving and popping out children does not necessarily mean that they are spiritually awake and enlightened and wise and therefore qualified to tell you how to make every choice in your life. And so with reverence and care and gratitude, we may sometimes have to just realize, I respect you and love you, but my life is different. I know this is what I experienced, and my parents are deeply beautiful, deeply wise on so many levels, and really wanted the very best for me. They didn't have any of their own ulterior motivations or anything like that. But they just had visions that were based on their own life experiences, their own learnings, their own wisdom that was gleaned from what they had lived, what they had learned, what they had experienced. And in their minds, therefore, that which they were teaching me was absolutely the best thing for me. And it was until I came to India and had a completely different experience and found myself drawn to a dharma and a path that was completely different from anything that I'd ever expected, anticipated, been taught about. And when I finally told them, or told my mother, I had already kind of told my dad, he was much more open and accepting. Moms are moms. Moms have a different level of attachment, especially with their daughters. But she was very, very attached to sort of how I was going to live and how close to her I was going to live and, the number of babies I was going to pop out and sort of all of that. And I remember when I told her that I was moving back to India, I actually did it via a letter. And because I thought it'll be easier. She'll digest the letter first and then we'll be able to have a calm conversation. And in the letter, I remember so vividly telling her, I love you so much and I respect you so much and I respect your choices so much. And I know that your choices were absolutely the best choices for you. And that they are exactly the choices that have given you this beautiful life, this beautiful, fulfilling life that you have, that is so right for you. But I don't want to be you. And I remember telling her, I say that with all the respect and love, but if you told me today, I was 25 at the time, so if you told me today that when I was 52, it's funny telling the story now because now I'm 52, but at the time I remember saying, if you told me that when I was 52, because Mom was 52 then, that was how I was going to be living my life, I can't even bear the thought of it. Like, that is so not where I want my life to go. And I said, when I look at Puja Swamiji, now I know that I could never actually achieve that in this lifetime, but at least I know that's the direction I want to go. And if I don't want to end up in the destination where you are, it means I can't take the same train. If I get on the same train, it's going to go to the same place. And so I have to get on a different train. And obviously I did my best to convey it with as much love and as much respect and as much gratitude as I could, because I felt that. I know that their lives are absolutely the very best, highest. I've got incredible respect for them, incredible gratitude. But I also knew that I was meant to live something different. And so if you find that that's the case, that someone has an expectation for you that isn't in alignment with what you feel inside is your truth or your dharma, then you need to stay true to yourself. And if they are evolved at all, as I was very blessed that my parents were, they will come around, they will understand. Ultimately, what they want, real loved ones, what they really want is that we should be happy, that we should be fulfilled. Not just happy on a superficial level, but they want that we should be deeply happy. They want that we should be deeply fulfilled, that our lives should be meaningful. And if you find that in a way that isn't what they thought, again, if they really love you and if they've got the courage to think outside their box, they will come around, but not everyone is in that situation. And so you've got to really just keep coming back to staying true to your own inner calling and be as loving as you can, as tender as you can, as gentle as you can, but simultaneously as fierce as you can in the protection of and the commitment to your own dharma and your own path. Because even though we have lots and lots and lots of lives and we keep coming back, you only get to do this one once. We don't get a repeat. We'll have different karmic lessons in next life, a different situation. But we only get to do this one once. And so do it mindfully, do it consciously, do it courageously. You owe it to yourself. And again, if they're really loved ones, they'll come, they'll support you in whatever it may be. It just may take them a little while.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing
a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. That juice of bhakti, that ras that we talk about, sometimes it seems to flow, like we're just swimming in it. And then there's times, sadly, where it feels like it dries up. And what I've noticed in my life, and in the lives of so many people I've had the great blessing and privilege to be in conversation with, is that it dries up due to a few different things. And they're actually really quite simple things to take care of in our lives. Because the river of bhakti is still flowing. It's just that we stop feeling drenched in it. So it's not that we have to bring the river back. We just have to somehow get ourselves able to again drink, heaping mouthfuls of it. And the things that have kept me and so many of those I've worked with from that are, number one, being in a rush, being busy. When your mind is in 100 places, whether it's your kids, your spouse, or God, you tend to forget how much you love them. And it tends to become just business. It's like, eat your dinner, do your homework, who's going to pick up the laundry, who's going to take out the trash, and you forget, oh my God, I love these people so much. And the same thing happens with our relationship with God. The busier we get, the more in our minds we are, in our cerebral aspects, we are figuring things out, we are planning, we are checking items off of to-do lists. The world becomes sort of a task to be done. And in order to love, you've got to drop into the heart. And when we're busy and rushed, we're not in our hearts. And so to the extent that you can prevent yourself from getting so busy and rushed that you spend all day long in your head and you find it difficult to drop into your heart, you'll find that ras of bhakti there. Another thing that happens is we have expectations of God. And those expectations aren't always fulfilled. So maybe we are great devotees and we do our japa and we do our puja and we do our chanting and all of our prayers and everything. And then someone we love gets sick or dies, or we get fired from our job, or we go through a bad divorce, or our house burns down, or any one of innumerable things happens. And there's a sense inside us of, what's the point? God let me down. And so some of us take that in a, maybe God's not really there. Or, maybe God's not quite as nice as I thought God was. What's the point? And inevitably we find ourselves with, that distance. It's like, again, if a loved one, your best friend or your spouse or your child does something that hurts you. They lie to you, or they disobey you, or they, do something that feels like they've betrayed you in some way. Even if you still love them, you find it a lot more difficult to access that love. You look at them and you feel full of anger and disappointment and hurt, resentment. And the same thing happens with God. So we may sit down to engage in bhakti activities, but the mind may say, how dare you? You weren't there for me. So in that sense, the recognition and awareness that, as I always say, God isn't a vending machine, and that God just isn't there to give us what we want. God's not a genie in a bottle. You know, we have these ideas that somehow a good connection with God is like the genie in the bottle. You know, like whatever I need, I'm just gonna rub it, and I'm gonna get whatever I want because I got this good connection with God. But it's not like that. And so to the extent that we can deepen our relationship with God, from the idea of the one who gives me what I want, to the deep experience of a supreme reality, then we're going to find ourselves less disappointed when what we wanted to happen doesn't happen. Another thing, and there's so many, but I'll just give you one more. Another thing that happens is on any path, there's moments of great movement and change. And then there's moments of what feels like stagnation, plateaus. And this is true on a spiritual life as well. On our spiritual path, in our practice, there are going to be times in which it just feels like we are getting deeper and deeper and deeper and closer, and every day is just more and more at us and more swimming in the ocean of God's love. And then suddenly we're at this like plateau thing, and it seems like nothing is moving. And it's really easy at those times to kind of give up, or to get disillusioned, or to, decide that we have better things to do than meditate because nothing's going to happen in my meditation anyway. And the solution to that piece is just resilience. In knowing you keep going, you just keep going, and it'll shift. We speak a lot in here about seasons, and seasons with crops and plants and trees, and seasons in which they're very plentiful and productive, and then seasons where the land is fallow, or the tree has lost not only its fruit but its leaves, and how all of that is really part of nature. And the same thing happens a lot on our spiritual path. And it's just really important to stay resilient and to know that even though you can't necessarily feel God so much at that time, that God was there. It's like that beautiful story I love of the man who has a dream one night, and he is a great devotee of God, and he wakes up from this dream and he cries out to God and he says, God, I had this awful dream. And in my dream, I saw my footsteps of my life along the beach. And throughout most of my life, throughout most of the path, I saw there were two sets of footprints, mine and yours, because you were always with me. But then there were these moments that were the toughest moments of my life. And in those moments, there was only one set of footprints. And how is it possible that you abandoned me in those times, like when I needed you most? Where did you go? How could you have disappeared on me when I needed you so much? And God says, my child, I didn't go anywhere. Those were the times I carried you. That's why there was only one set of footprints. And so in those times in our lives where we metaphorically feel like it's just one set of footprints, where is God? To see if we can reframe it and just understand that even though we may not see God, feel God the way that we're used to, like right here next to me, when we have the bird's eye view of our life, that becomes the time that we're able to see, oh yeah, I was actually being carried.
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit RAIN.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. The nature of the mind is to jump around. There's a reason that even in our scriptures it is called the monkey mind. It is the nature of the mind. It's like saying, I've got this puppy dog, could somebody please make it sit still? Or I've got this 2 or 3-year-old toddler, could somebody please make them sit still? It is the nature. You would worry if you had a 2-year-old who just sat still. Right? I mean, the doctors would say, let's run some tests. You know, this is not actually normal. If you got a new puppy and the puppy just sat there, you'd say, maybe I got a, defective puppy. Maybe there's something wrong with the puppy. Because we understand their nature is to run around. And that is the nature of the mind. Now, like a puppy, the mind can be trained. Like a young toddler, as you work with the mind, it grows. A 2-year-old won't sit still, but a 22-year-old will. Luckily, we don't have to wait 20 years for the mind to mature and blossom. You can work with it. But understand that that is the nature of the mind, so you don't feel like you've got a defective mind or there's some problem with your mind. That is the nature of the mind. How do you work with it? Number 1, mantra. Fantastic, fantastic tool. Number 1, if it's a Sanskrit mantra, if it's a Vedic mantra, you've actually got the power of the reverberation of that sound in you that has its own power. But also, even at the bare minimum, what the mantra does is it brings all of the mind into one place. Like if you have your puppy running around and you give it a bone, you give it one thing to do. It'll actually stay in one place for a while as long as it's got the bone. Or a toy. At At the most basic level, the mantra is that for the mind. But again, it's also a lot more powerful than that. Because it's actually also the science of sound. So you get a lot more benefits from a mantra, but at the bare minimum you're getting one place to hook the mind in. Number 2, practice meditation. It's very difficult and nearly impossible to bring a practice of quieting the mind in our daily life if we're not having a seated practice in which we are working exclusively on the mind. See, when I meditate, I'm not worried about what my arms are doing or my legs are doing or getting my lunch into my mouth and eating it. I'm not worried about speaking on the phone or working on a computer. I'm not worried about anything else. I don't have to walk down the street and make sure I don't trip. I have no other responsibilities. Body is still, not eating, not talking, not even looking, my eyes are closed. So it gives us that space to work exclusively with the mind. And what that does is it starts building what I call the mind muscle. Biologically, biochemically, the brain is not actually a muscle, like it's not made from the same fibers that muscles are made from, but it works very much like a muscle. Exactly what you teach it to do, exactly what you train it to do, exactly what you do a lot of, is what it's going to become very, very good at. So we bring in a practice of meditation, a seated practice, ideally twice a day, morning and evening. And don't worry if you don't have 2 hours, 20 minutes. But sit and work with the mind. It's going to wander. First thing everybody says when they start to meditate is, I can't meditate because my mind is all over the place. Well, that's why we meditate. I mean, ultimately we meditate for self-realization and God realization, but the first thing we have to do long before we can realize God or realize the self or awaken to the divine is create some space in my mind. There has to be room for those experiences to come. So the very first thing that meditation actually does for us, most of us, is it enables a spaciousness in the mind into which powerful awareness, powerful experience emerges. So the mind will wander. You'll bring it back. You'll choose something to meditate on. It may be your breath. It may be a mantra. It may be your third eye. It can be any one of numerous meditative techniques. But your mind is going to wander. It's going to start to think about breakfast or lunch or work or whatever it may be. And then you'll just bring it back. And then it'll wander again and you'll bring it back. And it'll wander again and you'll bring it back. And it'll wander again and you'll bring it back. And eventually what you're going to find is that it wanders less. You're able to bring it back more quickly. And that slowly you actually are able to string together some consecutive moments in which it hasn't wandered. In which it is literally right here, right now. And then you're going to be able to carry that into your day. Because while obviously we don't move through our day like this, I can chant my mantra. Driving a car, grocery shopping, washing dishes, cooking food, doing almost anything. I can be meditating on my breath. Driving a car, grocery shopping, doing dishes, cooking dinner, sitting in a board meeting. I can be doing all of that with open eyes, moving through the world. And so then you start to bring the meditation into your daily life. And that's the only way to do it. Most of us try to work with the mind by the mind. And so we start to think about how I'm going to stop thinking so much. And we think about it. How am I going to stop thinking so much? Well, all right, maybe I could, and we just keep thinking. You can't use the mind to free yourself of the mind in any way other than letting the mind be an ally to get you to sit for meditation. Letting it bring awareness back to the breath or the mantra. You cannot figure out how to stop overthinking. All that does is make you overthink more. You've got to actually give yourself an experience of a stillness. And then that will just become your pattern. Another really good practice is silence. Now it's interesting because in silence, it's only our mouth that is silent, and you're talking about what's going on in the brain. But I've noticed something really interesting, which is at least half, if not more, of the things I think are essentially preparing for conversations I'm going to have, or I'm noticing something so that I can then comment on it, or tell somebody about it, or do something about it. Oh, yeah, right, I've got to leave that one a message. Oh, wait, I have to tell this person that. Or, oh, that was so funny, God, I'm going to call this person right away and we'll laugh together. A huge percentage of what we think is actually in preparation for something we're going to say. But if you're in silence, and so you know, neither are you going to comment on it to that person, nor are you going to call someone else and tell them about it. The mind actually starts to quiet down a lot. The mind starts to realize there's no point of this, because by the time I come out of silence, this is no longer going to be so interesting. The comment will not be funny or pertinent or of any value 5 hours later or 2 days later or a week later. It's a kind of in-the-moment thing, and if you're not going to say it in the moment, forget it. To go back to somebody, half a day later and say, that thing you said earlier today, well, here's my comment. Life has moved on. You'd feel childish. They would think you were childish. So by going into a practice of silence, I have found that actually the mind automatically quiets a lot. In the times that I've had the blessing to go into some days strewn together of silence, even though it was only the lips, the mind automatically actually became a lot quieter. So it's a beautiful practice, whether it's a few hours a day a week, a few days at the turn of a season, a few days a month, kind of whatever your schedule will allow. But it's a really, really beautiful and powerful practice.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on Om Times Radio.